The opening keynote address by Mark R. Kramer, co-founder and managing director of FSG, provided illuminating insights on the complex and evolving relationships that exist between business and society today.
How are the ways business engages with society? And of course, there's the very traditional way that companies give philanthropy, but that's not enough. And then about 20 years ago, companies began to think about their corporate social responsibility. But that too, we think, is missing an opportunity. And the opportunity that Michael Porter and I began to focus on was this idea of finding business opportunities in solving social problems. Because the changes that have to happen to support new ways of doing business often need a policy basis behind them. They often need to involve NGOs who understand the populations and the markets and the problems that companies are now starting to step into. And that is very, very powerful. And I think in India here, with the 2% CSR requirement that companies are now responsible for, there is a huge opportunity to work with government to think about how to use that 2% not just for philanthropy, but for shared value opportunities that strengthen the business and that can improve lives on a scale and with a sustainability that philanthropy cannot.
A rousing speech followed the opening keynote. Swami Chidanand Saraswati, President and spiritual head of Parmarth Niketan, talked about the philosophical underpinnings of the rat race that is today's business world.
Today, I see wherever I go all over the world, people come to me every day. Every given time in our ashram, 30 to 40 countries people are there. We can see them there. I meet them every day. They come from every religion, they come from every culture, and they bring their problems and the solutions together. And what they are looking for, how end of the day? When I go to sleep, I can check my balance sheet. Where do I stand? Whether I'm becoming bitter or better. Whether my company, I think this company must start one course right there with the skill development, self-development. Whether I'm in peace or in pieces. I have seen that tea set, TV set, sofa set, solitaire set, sari set, everything is set. But people are upset. And we have to see how to be in peace. And peace is very important in your company, in your family, and within your heart. Wherever you go. And the good thing is, wherever you go, there you are. It's you who matters.
We cannot make
Sadhvi Bhagwati Saraswati, President of the Divine Shakti Foundation, was the next speaker in line. Her speech focused on the need for emotional well-being of workers to enhance overall productivity of the organization.
What we know is that productivity is directly linked to the mental and emotional state of the worker. And we all know this. If you're miserable, you've just had a big fight with your wife or your husband or your mother or father, and you sit down to work on a project, some work, how effective are you? So emotional well-being is actually one of the most crucial aspects simply for productivity, even if I'm only looking at this in rupees and dollars and euros. Even if I'm only looking at it with this tunnel vision of profit as money, I still am profiting by the emotional well-being of my employees. Apple, Google, Hewlett-Packard, so many companies today not only have meditation rooms, but are paying people on the clock to meditate. Because what we know is that when they walk out of that meditation room, something has shifted fundamentally in their creativity, in their problem-solving ability, in their productivity, in the way that they relate with colleagues, and that is financially beneficial to the companies. So bringing about love, emotional well-being, dare I say spiritual well-being, for our employees is something that I think we're going to see more and more in the coming years being built into budgets and business strategies, even with only profit as the bottom line.
Honorable Railway Minister Suresh Prabhu was the next speaker. His focus was on devising ways to make business and society more friendly and less adversarial, all the while increasing purchasing power of the public.
On a long-term basis. So if we talk about a sustainable business model, normally we feel that there has to be an adversarial relationship between society and business. Because those who are engaged in economic activity try to earn profits, and therefore the society seems to be the victim and the business seems to be the beneficiary. How do you make sure that we allow each and every citizen of India to access all the kinds of goods and services that he aspires for? How do you create more and more purchasing power for him? And that's the state policy role, is to create more and more purchasing power so that people will have something more in their pocket which they can use to access services and goods. So many programs that we have launched, including direct cash transfers, will aim at this, which will provide a choice for a customer to decide what he should want to buy. But at the same time, allowing innovation to take place in the marketplace, which multiple entrants can only offer, not just one state can make it happen. And therefore, making this model work is something which is in the long-term interest of the country. And who are the businesses then who will become? The business also are drawn from the people, from the society itself. If you create a huge supply chain model, there will be thousands, hundreds of thousands of people will become part of the supply chain. Unless we have that enlightened leadership in business which understand this properly and therefore try to align these interests in a very effective way, that would hasten the process.
Next on the agenda was a panel discussion on financial inclusion, moderated by Raghuveer Srinivasan, Associate Editor of the Business Line.
It's time to get down to business again, and this promises to be another interesting session for you on financial inclusion.
Rahul Gangal, partner at Roland Berger, talked about the Jan Dhan Yojana and the objectives and aims of this ambitious new scheme from the new government.
Rural, urban, poor. So what's the objective of this entire exercise? The objective is, one, improve credit delivery, improve ability to understand what financial access people have. And the second is to be able to do that at a manageable cost. We're looking at financial inclusion and financial literacy from those perspectives. From an aspect of access, the kind of people who have access to it, rural, urban, poor. Are you covering geographically all elements of the space? Are you covering vertically by including what was traditionally a very nice form of chit funds but is not used well enough by banks? Are you building all those tools into your system to ensure that literacy about financial inclusion is passed through?
I just want to say that
Chetna Sinha, founder and chair of the Mandeshi Mahila Bank, spoke next on her bank's incredible journey to get a banking license, even when its promoters were themselves illiterate.
When we applied for the banking license, majority of our women had a thumb impression. On that ground, Reserve Bank of India rejected the license, saying that how can we issue a license to the bank whose promoting members are non-literate? I came back from Mumbai, I was nervous. I told women. They were not nervous. They said, so what? We'll learn to read and write and apply again. And we went again. You know, it is just humbling. I had no idea, but next time when we went, I didn't go alone, women came with me. And we had 15 women. We had a discussion with officer. And they said, you rejected the license because we are non-literate. Tell us to calculate the interest of any principal amount. If we fail, don't issue the license. Tell your officers to do it without calculator. So I would like to say that this was a learning for me. And I realized that was my first financial literacy for me, not for people, because they know very well. And learning was that in spite if people are non-literate, that doesn't mean they cannot manage finance. They can. So that's how Mandeshi Mahila Bank started.
See, it is absolutely critical
Naina Lal
that we make
Kidwai
it
of HSBC was next, talking passionately about making financial inclusion work and how the government needs to step up its efforts when it comes to pushing direct benefits.
I would say it is absolutely critical that we make it work. And the only way it will work now is government has to push its direct benefit transfers through the system. So it's fabulous. Accounts are now opened. Aadhaar card has been fully accepted despite all the issues that it went through, unfortunately, for a while. And hats off to this Prime Minister that he didn't throw it out the window. He brought it right back. And using the Aadhaar card, using the direct benefit transfer system where we can put money through those bank accounts, that's where it will begin to work. Because the cost to a bank to maintain an account where there is no money and no transaction is very high. So we have to make this work. And I think we are at that point in our history where a push in the right direction will take us forward. If we don't get this right, we will have to end up closing a lot of these accounts, which would be quite unfortunate. And then let me just also talk about microfinance, which is very, very critical, very close to my heart. But I have seen the boom and bust of microfinance because the business model is about making profit. So what is the right price to charge becomes very important. And we saw how a rapacious rate, however you define it, in our case, as in India's case, it was 45, 50%, caused its own backlash. And we had politicians shouting from pulpits, please don't repay the microfinance institutions. And microfinance almost died in this country. I'm really glad it's back. The model that's back is a very robust self-help group model. But the fact is that we have to have a model which is socially relevant, even while it seeks to be a business model.
Anil Sinha of IFC talked about impact investing, a practice that aims to improve the social and environmental scenario without sacrificing returns.
What is impact investing? Impact investing is to make a social and environment impact along with a financial return. The characteristics are that there must be intentionality. Intentionality to make that social and environment impact. That's first, and then looking at the financial returns alongside it. Those financial returns can be simply getting your money back, to making a risk-adjusted return. It could be different assets. But the other characteristic, and this is what's related to shared value, is measuring the impact. And you need to understand, and unless you're empathetic, and unless you're assimilating, you won't get the business model right. And secondly is patience. The big change will come in India when we get the main financial institutions involved, as well as high net individuals involved in investing out of their Indian funds. And I think that's the big change that I want to see if impact investing has come down to India.
Rajat Kathuria, Director and CEO of ICREER, was next, elucidating on how technology and easing regulations can positively impact financial inclusion in India.
Using technology, using mobile phones, and also kind of easing regulation to allow multiple participants to come into this space. So besides banks, we know physical bank location in rural areas is not worth it. It hasn't worked since independence, it's not going to work now. So we need that kind of technology and mobile push. And there has been, after a considerable amount of time, some amount of, I think, easing of the regulation in allowing business correspondence And it will happen in steps. RBI is very cautious in terms of liberalizing in this area because of well-known reasons, because you're dealing with, money, and you're dealing with money of people at the bottom of the pyramid. So you have to be doubly careful. But there has been easing of regulation in this space. There are payment banks that are going to come in. There are small banks that are going to come in as well. MFIs are trying to kind of reinvent themselves. Post offices have applied to become payments banks. And, 1 billion people have access to, well, if not 1 billion people, at least 70% of the people in India have access to mobile phones. And so the Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, mobile trinity is the way to go, I think, if one has to achieve financial inclusion. Of course, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. We'll know what the status of financial inclusion is in a few years from now. But I think there are reasons to be optimistic.
The next session on the agenda was on health and nutrition, moderated by Amit Kapoor, Chairman of Shared Value Initiative India. First speaker on the topic of nutrition was Geetu Verma, Executive Director of Food and Refreshment at HUL. Geetu talked about critical areas in nutrition that need addressing, including access, education, and empowerment.
The need is now more than ever for multi-stakeholder partnerships to very aggressively start forging solutions. From my perspective, I think there are three areas where industry, where health partners, where government can work together. I think the first one is that of access. One place where you can actually create value is by making good, wholesome food accessible. And whether that is food which is fortified for undernutrition or healthier food for people who are obese. So I think access is really key. I think the second piece is that of, I would say, habit-changing education. And I think the third area is that of empowerment. Empowerment in terms of actually bringing financial capability amongst people in the lower economic strata so that they can actually afford the right kind of food.
Siraj A. Chaudhary, Chairman of Cargill India, was next to air his views. He delineated the importance of edible oils in increasing India's nutrition profile.
Edible oils are the largest penetrating staple into the homes, almost 95 to 99%, depending on who's quoting the figures. And they are also the best carriers of micronutrients, specifically vitamins A, D, and E. And then suddenly we realized that we had a product which had so much potential to enhance nutrition or to add to the nutrition. So we took the step of voluntarily fortifying the oils that we were selling into the market. Now, obviously, it's a very fragmented industry, and the oils that we were selling were really about branded oils, so they were going only to a certain section of the society. So the thought was that how do we make it more widespread? So we said that if we put it out as a competitive advantage, put it out as a marketing communication, and it's not rocket science, anybody can do it, and that's and if the competition also starts doing it, and over a period of time, if the whole industry starts doing it because it kind of becomes table stakes, then the whole purpose is achieved. And nutrition is a lot like the soul. You don't see it. Its impact is felt over a long period of time. It takes years for malnutrition to sort of show its problems or its limitations. And therefore, if you have to address the soul, it has to go in the food that people consume every day. And therefore, communicating to the consumer, putting it in products which are of daily use and are accessible to the consumer, and setting a base where everybody in the industry does it, really help to propagate a concept like that.
Himanshu Jain of Sealed Air elucidated on how technology can help reduce food wastage, resulting in fresh and affordable produce for all.
I'm talking of some statistics from US. and India is obviously a little behind, 52% of the vegetables in US get wasted. So that means a farmer is producing it, it never gets consumed, so all the cost, it gets added up in the supply chain, and you pay double the price of what you should be paying, if I may simply add up and say it's an economic cycle. We bring the technology here, working with our front-end partners like Cargill or Levers, create a situation where the food really becomes affordable. We are talking of fortification, very relevant, no debate about it. On the other hand, people die of starvation because the food itself is not available or the cost of food is higher than what the guy can afford. It needs some courage, leadership from the industry to step up and change the game. With a purely profit motive to start with, and over a period of time, this automatically becomes a social enterprise because you are effectively, in the process, we make money, you make money, all of you make some profit, but at the same time, make the food more affordable for the people, and that to me is how you bring nutrition to the people. Whether it's a fortified, unfortified comes later, but primarily the food becomes more affordable.
The penultimate speaker on the panel was Ravi Ramaswamy, Head of Health Systems at Philips Innovation Campus, who spoke about his company's innovative products helping monitor and safeguard pregnant women.
Philips has a solution called mobile obstetrics monitoring, where from the time a lady conceives, right till the end of the delivery and beyond that, we try to monitor all the critical parameters, be it blood pressure, be it sugar, be it anemia, be it the hemoglobin content, and a multitude of other parameters to ensure that both the neonate and the maternal are safe and they deliver a successful, and they have a successful delivery. Now, this calls for nutrition also sort of plays into that, in the sense that if hemoglobin is going to go, which anemia is a cause for most maternal deaths. Now, the question is, how do I sort of get over it? It is again by teaching, it is again by changing behavior, it is giving the nutrients that sort of help the mother and the baby to sort of grow in the right way. So it's an intertwining, it's a convergence of various aspects that come into the fold now. It can't be separated, saying that healthcare is no separate. Now, how does the mobile obstetrics monitoring work? It relies on the mobile infrastructure. It depends on the telecommunication network that is there. So what we now see is not isolated silos of technology, but it's a complete convergence. And that's where most industries are driving towards. And the bottom of it all is, one, how do I make a behavioral change in people embracing the changes that are coming up? And secondly, how is it that it is sustainable over a long period of time? How do you ensure that compliance to medicine, compliance to medication, compliance to practices are built up in a sustainable manner? So it's a more holistic approach that is now being taken by the healthcare providers and by the manufacturers of equipment, rather than being looked at it in silos. And that's where the whole thing gets blended up.
Final speaker on the topic was Ashwin Nayak, founder of Vatsalya, who pinpointed the problem facing India today: overproduction of food without enough nutrition content in them.
So on one hand, we have the entire burden of obesity, diabetes and things. On the other side, we have malnutrition. So how do you start focusing on nutrition in a very holistic way? I personally believe that we have gone wrong with the whole overproduction and forgot the nutrient piece. So our green revolution is coming to bite us now. So we have to figure out how to make nutrients the core of our healthcare system. The second piece is, how do you bring various stakeholders together? The food people have to talk to the healthcare people, the sanitation people, and have an integrated approach. I think there is in the last few years, there is some development, but it could be a great public health sort of initiative if all of us can come together.
Shared value is a fairly interesting concept, wherein we are trying to say that societal objectives and economic objectives come together. A lot of times what has happened is people have started believing that capitalism is a reflection of evil, which is absolutely incorrect, for a simple reason that the problems of the world are effectively going to get solved through businesses. Businesses create wealth, businesses create solutions for the problems that we actually have. So anything that we see in the world, the solutions will come from businesses in the future.
What's the relevance for India? Why is this an important concept here? And I think, in short, you have a perfect laboratory of profound social issues with companies who are well positioned to address them.
What one learns from such exchanges, which is offline as well as from what you hear from the panelists, is that whatever we achieved so far is great, but it's an evolution.
So from this conference, I think the more and more you meet people with diversity, that's when your discussions start. And once the discussions start, they obviously go to the next level. So in terms of triggering your mind and giving you that opportunity to think, I think this is a great forum.
What I found fascinating about being here is you have government representatives. We have the Union Minister of the Railways. You have spiritual advisors. You have suits and sadhus. You have business representatives, and you have NGOs. So you have the social conscience, the spiritual conscience, the commercial expertise, and the governance expertise all together in one room.